Not sure what I'd do with that. Not usually the air in July that we worry about being dehumidified, so it's already 80% humidity. Yeah.
Hopefully everybody can hear us tonight. Oh, there it goes.
Sure it's all tight.
Is yours?
This one, I never made any meetings.
Yeah, mine's not. There's one.
Mic number 2, that's the second one. Here,
So that's because there is one that will do two.
yeah, I think it's
Somebody's over
here.
here.
Just
Just switch. And we know that.
use my outside voice.
These Tyler's. Okay, call the meeting to order. I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Upper Similkameen Indian Band. Motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Willis, seconder. Councillor McLean. Any additions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Motion to adopt the minutes from the August 16th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gould, seconder. Councillor Elliott, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll go down to 6.1, development variance permit for 148 Edgewood Drive. Mark? I think so.
Think so? Okay. Yeah, development variance permit for 148 Edgewood Drive is a storage, open storage for boat or RV. The application was for replacing an older structure that was there with the issue of having a heavy-duty rock fence that limits him in how far back in his yard he can put the structure. So he's applied for a variance for the front yard setback from 6 meters down to 3.6 and the side from 1.2 down to 0.9 meters. The area is RS1 zoned, low density residential community plan.
Okay, anybody have any questions, Mark? Councillor Gould?
With this, I see we have one opposed letter. Was there more than that received or just the one?
Just the one received for this
And then,
application.
is a temporary structure allowed in that neighborhood? Like, because this looks like the application for it to be permanent, but is it temporary within the bylaws still?
This application is a permanent one. I honestly know on the temporary structure side of it. Carrie, can you speak to that at all? Or?
This is for a permanent
Yeah.
storage
Mhm.
as opposed to doing the structure, it's more development. He did have one there previously that he did remove, I think most of this, but this one, which shows an example of what it would look like on page 16.
I see it and it looks like it's just something that could, if needed, be moved again, but, okay.
Requires a building permit for the structure.
Yep.
There was,
Councillor McLean?
The experience I had was that if I built a temporary structure, that was allowed. If I was going to build a permanent structure, then I had to go through placement in the yard and a bunch of different things. Excuse me?
Anything over 100 square feet requires a building permit,
Right.
and everything should still fall within the setbacks that are set out in the zoning bylaw for any
On the
structure.
temporary.
Anybody else with a question? Okay. We have a staff recommendation that the development variance permit 2021-05 DVP be approved. Somebody want to make that a motion? Thank you, Councillor Willis. Seconder? Councillor Elliott. Any questions on the motion? Councillor Gould?
I'm just looking at it, and is it not possible, instead of going this way with it, can they not go the other way? Like, if it's off their driveway, like to go parallel, like, is there other options? Because of the fact I understand that there's a cement fence there.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that there's probably two factors on where he's asked to place this. One, again, it's where he had a previous, more temporary structure, with an entrance from
Have
there.
we received any complaints on that previous temporary structure?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that there's on record, oh, okay,
And then the second part is it's within the front setback regardless.
regardless. So it's not anything, it's not creating line of sight for traffic or anything like that? Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? One opposed is Councillor Gould. Motion is carried. 6.2, development variance permit for 306 Pine Street. Mark.
Yes, so 306 Pine Street application is for a variance for a garage in their rear yard. They are a corner lot with kind of a narrow lot, so to build any structure, he would basically be within the setback. So he's asked for a reduction on the interior side from 1.2 down to 1, on the exterior from 4 down to 1. If you look at the site plan, it's basically one corner on the street side that will be significantly within the setback. We've also asked for a condition to ask for a larger rear setback from 1.2 to 3 meters to add a little visibility coming out of the lane if he is going to get that tight to the exterior side.
Questions? Questions? No? Okay, seeing no questions, we have a staff recommendation that the development variance permit 2021-07 DVP be approved. Did you make the motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. I can't see your arms.
I'll second, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
McLean, Councillor Gould. Any questions? All in favor? Carried, thank you. You guys gotta raise them high. See over the edge here. 6.3, development permit, variance permit for 133 Bridge Street. Getting all tongue-tied. Mark. Take a drink, quick.
Okay, this is both a development permit within the town center DP area and a development variance permit for reduction in parking spaces for this development at 133. On the development permit end of this, it is a multi-use commercial and multifamily development. Planners have stated that it does follow form and feel of our town center. It provides two 100 square meter commercial spaces and 6 apartment units on the second story with their own entrance and separate from the commercial units. On the variance side of things, they've asked for a reduction in parking for the commercial units. Each 100 square meter unit would require 3 off-street parking stalls. They've asked for that to be reduced to 0, so a total of 6 reduced there. And then a second reduction for the visitor parking portion of the apartment units, which require half a parking stall per unit. So a reduction of 3 parking stalls for that portion of it. And then the second part being a reduction of off-street loading from 1 off-street loading to 0, a lane access. I think it's worth talking about as well that this property has just been through the subdivision application process, has gone through a referral process for all infrastructure and MOT and utilities and all the requirements for that area count as well. So the majority of the development end and the planning end was in place prior to receiving the development permit and the DVP for this site.
And Modi has given their thumbs up on the setback that they've...
Yes, so they have met MOT's setback requirements for this site. Our local zoning requires a slightly softer setback, where MOT requires a larger one for a bigger sight line. They have met those requirements, and MOT has approved that.
Anybody else have questions? Councillor Gould?
So one of my questions was about the MOT. So from Highway 5A onto Bridge Street, that's the line of sight there?
Yes.
So that's perfect. That was one of my questions. The next one is about runoff, because I did read through the letters that we received, and we were just putting through new policy, like in restrictions and guidance on what to do with our runoff within our property. So if they're going to have 100% coverage of their property, is that plan for runoff handled within the building permit
It's
and subdivision permit?
yes, within the subdivision.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause I did read through it, and it said that's under those guidelines, so I just wanted to make sure that it's being addressed for in there. And then in regards to parking per spot, and the variance request of 9 spaces, which is quite a bit in our downtown core. I know that we've had discussions and recommendations of future planning for the community of making Princeton more of a walkable community where there's like designated parking areas. But within our bylaw that we have right now, our zoning bylaw, it allows for variances if you can't have it within a certain distance, but only for town-owned municipal land for it being the designated parking area. So, because it wouldn't be fair for us to designate a parking spot such as, say, the strip mall as a designated parking, because we don't own that business. So my question for staff, I guess, would be about the proposed parking that's on the map. It wasn't our map, was it? It was somebody else.
That was somebody else.
Something else.
Right, so, and it said proposed MOTI parking, and then in here, in the application or in the statement from our planner, shows as the town is currently working with the Ministry of Transportation to establish the remainder of the lane as a one-way, and then also for parking, but at this time, it's not town-owned. So would we still need the $5,000 per parking space as per our bylaw?
So we can, a couple pieces on the parking for this. Staff identified parking as a sticky part of this application right from the subdivision phase, and started exploring numerous different options as far as public parking. The statement of the MOT lots at the end of the lane towards 5A is a place that we've identified as a target for us to hopefully gain access to as public parking. In response to, so we did have seven responses total out of 50 mailed out letters on this application, and parking was certainly identified within those concerns as well. The majority of those came in today. I did have a chance to do a rough estimate of public parking within 100 square meter radius of this property. There's between on-street and off-street parking approximately 130 public spaces within 100 meters of this facility. Also within those parcels in the vicinity, 49 that were mailed out, there's 37 who have additional off-street parking available to those properties as well. So in talking with our contracted planners, in their professional opinion, there's certainly adequate parking to handle these 6 or 9 off-street sites that were being varied. If you look at the commercial entity of this, it's it's 6 spots, and then the visitor parking, I think, is certainly within the residential side streets there as well. So.
Yeah, just to
Yeah, go ahead.
further, and I understand, and this is where we have that delicate balance of development and not outgrowing our ability to service it. And most of the businesses in the area kind of work as it is. It's a little bit congested in certain times, but like, for example, the business across the street from that, they're mostly evening, whereas the business where there's more parking spots is closed when that one's open. So I do see shared use of parking lots. However, we all know that that corner, that intersection, which was part of a recent stress test, let's call it, of our community, is that people don't always read the yellow lines. Like, they don't always pay attention to that. It's the law, don't park there, but people are gonna park where it's convenient. And there already is an issue coming down Bridge Street where it's only supposed to be 1 lane and people are already turning right. That's an MOT, that's a Ministry of Transportation's issue. I get it. I just want to be sure that, one thing is that the variance, I'm fine with, in addressing the variance, but then we also have to address our bylaw. Our bylaw states that we have to do that.
So we're working on that through.
Yeah, so sorry.
Go.
We've talked with our, as we know, we're in our OCP review. Following that, will of course be a zoning review beyond that. Our contractor planners have also stated we've got beyond conservative, beyond modern downtown parking requirements at this point. Certainly, when you look at the surrounding area, we're as stiff as they come as far as requiring significant off-site parking. So I think the goal is to identify some of these public spaces that we have identified, and as we work through those reviews, see what we can put forward to amend that. It has been, looking back historically, it looks like since approximately 2007, it has been the norm to vary as the town center requires, as opposed to enforce the bylaw that is in place.
So I support that too. Like, yes, we do need to look at it as what our community needs. Our community needs this. And being the location, it needs to have the commercial space below with residents above. I get that. I support that. It's just now saying, and I don't see a motion for that, for us to be waiving the $45,000 because it's $5,000 per spot. That other businesses have previously been
No,
forced to do.
no business has been charged.
Yes, they have.
Who?
In the past. When Fortis rebuilt from the back to the front.
Then they're the only one that's on record. We don't have a record of it, do we?
No, in fact, there was a previous restaurant in town that we built, and I believe it hit the local newspapers. I believe it was like $25,000 that they were required to pay. There's no record of any changes on that.
But I'm just saying then,
It just got buried.
So I'm just saying, if that's the case, I think that a responsible thing for us to do would put on record as well to vary, are we also considering waiving that fee? That needs to be one of the motions is what I was trying to say.
With this variance down to 0, you are no longer requiring those off-street parking stalls that they have. So instead of pay in lieu, you're varying it to 0 for that segment.
Okay.
Is what the contract is trying to say.
Councilor McLean.
I don't think there's a member of this council that isn't intent on trying to add housing and trying to add business and trying to add everything else. But let's not fall all over ourselves catering to development and overlooking requirements. This is a busy section down there, very busy. And I want new business and everything else. The pressure you're going to put, in my mind, on all those surrounding businesses and residential areas for what you're adding with a pub and this and that. When we discussed this before, I wasn't aware that there was any need for a variance for this development. All I heard was, do we agree with this? Of course I agree with it. But I presumed that there would be adequate parking. I'm not comfortable with this. And then you sit here and want to pass this and say, well, we may get this from the Ministry of Highways. We may get some from parking from the Ministry of Highways. We don't know for sure. We're not 100% sure. And yet we're going to go ahead and put this through without taking the time to make sure that we've got that.
So how many parking spots within 100 meters?
Approximately 130.
That's not including the strip mall, correct?
That is not, no.
So that's parking in that area that's public parking. We're
There's
talking about what,
other
9?
businesses in those areas that you're talking about. It's not as if there's 100 spaces with no one going to it. This is 100 spaces with.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate, because if you go downtown and you park in front of any of the businesses on Bridge Street and you walk to any of the other businesses, none of those businesses and none of the cafes in downtown have enough parking for their restaurants.
So you want to make it worse.
No, we have a public parking stall just behind the Old Town Hall, which is now the visitor center. We have public parking on the streets. We have public parking at the old Overweighty. We have public parking on a number of spots in town now. It's not like we only have one parking spot in town.
It's not like we only have one parking spot in town. I'm never.
No, but in our town, town is, how many meters long is Bridge Street?
390.
390 meters.
We know that.
A soccer field's 105 meters.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying people can walk if they,
Pardon me?
I'm saying people
Of
have the
course
ability
people
to
can
walk.
But are you just going to keep increasing this? Like, just keep this
We're
process
talking
going?
we're talking 9 parking stalls.
In the past, what we did, you're talking about 9 parking stalls. You have nowhere near what you need for that pub.
He's gonna have parking himself.
You're kidding yourself. If you think that those parking stalls
He's
that are
one short for his lot.
I just don't get it. As far as I'm concerned, we're rushing this through without, hey, it's wonderful to say I'm in favor of development, I'm in favor of the housing that this is going to provide and everything else. But I'm not in favor of, adding to this parking business.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Gould?
I didn't get to the loading area, waiving that too. So can you speak on that? Like, I know when we looked at the property that's to the north of it, that hasn't been developed yet, that we did a variance already on that for we were talking about the turn and stuff, being able to get in there. We're being asked to vary that to 0 too, no loading space. So what would be the plan? I guess we don't even know what the tenants are either.
Yes, so,
Yeah,
Yeah, but it'd be out of the alley is where they would do it.
so they would block the alley?
Just like this alley, just like Home Hardware.
We're here, or down the street. We have people that go out and stop traffic, so.
I know.
there's only Save-On and Save-On, Randy's Restaurant, and the pub that have loading areas. Oh, and maybe Gordo.
In Little Creek, because they're
Oh, in Little
delivered when they're,
But
Those are not parking spots.
That's a lane, actually.
that is,
So they block the lane as well.
yeah. Yeah, it's one of these really tough balancing acts. Personally, this is the most I've ever had to do with development, so I want to make sure we're taking into consideration the whole, like our use in the community. And not that there's an official plan, there was talk during our strategic plans about changing the way Vermilion is, changing the way Bridge Street is. If there's those talks, that's even more street parking that's gonna go. So I just want to really make sure that we're all on the same page. We still need to be able to get to the businesses, or people will just keep driving.
So we took a lot of time considering this. We've gone through the subdivision application. We've looked at all the infrastructure that would be required to do this. We looked at the lane, we looked at Highway 5A and Bridge Street and how we know that that intersection can sometimes be overloaded. We looked at the fact that the gateway is right there, the wood structures are right there, and people coming out, if it was a two-lane alleyway, that might be a blind spot for them. We worked with MOT getting the setback back in place. There is parking stalls there for the apartments. There's
6.
6 parking stalls that are there for the apartments.
How many apartments?
6.
6 one-bedroom, so the parking
Back.
will be off the lane.
Off the alley.
In that one picture, the parking for the commercial. They've sort
So
of
the
put
north
a
of it.
landscape, little strip there where they would be parking so that it looks attractive on Bridge Street. So and that was the other hard thing to do because it's an awkward corner. And we wanted to find something that's gonna work and be form-fitting with the character of our community. We didn't want it to have one side that looked good. Because you've got 5A that's visual and you've got Bridge Street. And I think they've done a great job in accomplishing that and being able to supply 6 parking stalls for the tenants upstairs.
I appreciate,
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate the fact of what you just said. We considered this. We considered this aspect, we considered that aspect, we considered this aspect. At what point did you want to involve council in that?
We are right now.
No.
That's fine, but, you know, you're coming at us with something that we had no, as far as I know, I had no input into the decisions that you guys came up with, or you made, or whatever. And we're getting presented from staff considerations that you made without our input or anything else until now. And you're sitting there saying that you took a lot of time and a lot of it made a lot of sense and everything else.
So staff has been following, I'm going to step in here. So staff has been following the procedures that are set out in our bylaws and our zoning to make sure that everything is in line before they bring it to council. So they're following the preset rules that we have as a municipality to bring it to council. So that's where they're at now. They've done all their due diligence, they've had the developer do their due diligence, and now they're bringing it to council for approval.
Do you see what you're saying?
Yes, that we have.
It's here for approval. And all the discussion and everything else that went on,
Because they
went on
followed-
as staff. It didn't involve council. You come to us for a final decision right now, and we're supposed to read through this stuff and understand how you came to the conclusions that you came to without any input into it, without any questions until now, and you're looking at us for final approval.
I am sorry, Counselor, but that's how these applications all come to council, is that we look after it, we do the reports, we do our due diligence, we work with the contractor planner for every DP and every variance, and then we bring it forward to council.
Well, I have no problem with that, except that when you're bringing it forward to council, you're bringing it forward for final approval.
Correct.
Okay, I rest my case.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say it in a different light. Thank you, Deputy CAO, for telling us what that is, like that the process it would take forever if we had to be involved in every decision. So the thing that helps settle my comfort, because yes, this is the first we're seeing it. Yes, we're going to be making a decision on what's brought here. But the biggest thing is it hasn't been taken lightly. It has been, all these concerns have previously been looked at or another, and which is what I'm wanting on the official record, that it is, yes, we have to trust our staff, but that's also another thing why we picked our staff though too, right? Not all of them, they were kind of here, sorry. But it's just, I understand that process. It's terrifying to know or think that you might make the wrong decision. That's what scares me. Like, what if this isn't the best decision for the community? But I also thank you for saying that. Yes, all of this has been discussed by the engineers, the planners, the professionals. So there's still concerns. Our options are, we could defer. It just takes more time then, which is, this is the first that I've personally seen any plans on it. It's not like or that we've all had other meetings on it either. So I get it, it's frustrating. It feels like maybe we should be involved more, but I also see it would slow things down.
Yep.
One more thing on parking. So, Ecora, who we've worked with, for probably last year, has continually said that our parking is way above and beyond. And most of the communities are reducing the parking requirements. We also met last week with our consultant who is doing our OCP review, and she also, without, us hinting to her that our parking requirements are quite high, said most municipalities are varying or waiving all parking requirements at this time.
I was just gonna add that, this is not ideal, but when you're dealing with a community as old as ours, and a community that was laid out years and years and years ago when it was horse and buggy, every development that we are going to encounter is going to encounter this problem. And so the solution is going to be debated for everyone, but I think the idea is we have to just understand that as we densify, as we grow, we can't grow our downtown any bigger, and so we have to look at designated parking areas, and people are just going to have to walk a little bit further to get to the retail establishment that they're looking for. That's just part of our growing pains. We're not going to be able to fix it.
Councillor Willis?
Looking at it and just trying to picture how it'll work. I know when we did our whole thing that, you seem like you have a lot, but it does fill up fast. And, and nobody wants to walk very far to see this, maybe everyone wants to, the beach in the lane. And so I'm just trying to picture how it'll work, but, so they say they got 6 spots, what are the 6 spots? Right. And they're supposed to have 3 more, is that right?
Visitor parking.
Right.
So that's a busy problem. Gotcha. And then on the side, the duplex, they're parking for that.
The duplex is not part of this application, only a separate
But the
application.
social, I don't know, so far.
It will have,
And all of a sudden, it's just another building that will be thrown into the mix too, right?
when we get to the duplex portion of it, there will be a DP for multifamily, and we are also gonna be doing a zoning and OCP amendment, which will trigger a public hearing for one lot for one of the duplexes.
And I was just gonna say too, that even when there's a change of use of the building, like if a building was used for this, and then they retire or they sell or whatever, and a new business goes in, that does require a whole review, and parking comes up every single time. And yes, I would say every single business that's out there does not meet our zoning bylaw.
One last question.
Yep.
Those 130 sites within, or spots within that 100 square meters, does that include the residential side street as well? Okay. So, yeah.
Yep.
I just know in cities that are doing them, like Summerland is a good example. Every parking lot is now monitored because it's a premium too. I don't want to get to that point too. But
I think, this
we still
council
have enough.
and previous councils have all been very sensitive to this, and we are aggressively looking at parking locations.
Yeah.
Probably run out of spots. Like we've talked about a couple lots that are gone now, and you talk about,
Any further comments? We have a staff recommendation to approve the DP, or the DVP. Thank you, Councilor Willis. Seconder? No? I'll second it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
allowed.
just, I would, I don't, I'm gonna tap into my, I'm not sure if this is the process, so I'm gonna, please give me some leeway. I want to be sure that we haven't been collecting or making businesses pay
We-
$5,000.
I've asked
per shot.
staff that very question again this morning, and we have no record of,
And we pulled the restaurant file and went through it, and it was done as a variance.
As variance, okay. So it, we wouldn't be setting precedents because we've been doing it all along.
we've already set precedents to do a variance.
So instead of collecting the money for the parking spaces, plus it would have to be within 125 meters, town-owned property, then you can collect 5,000 per parking space. But instead,
Yeah, we
just
don't have-
doing variances.
Okay. Because there is no reserve fund,
No,
as like our bylaw says there should be.
because there's no money in it. Okay,
My thought would have been defer this until you have confirmation of the MOT property.
Exactly.
Until you have some kind of indication, and it isn't turning the thing down. It's saying, we want you to be a little more conscious of the parking requirements that we think you should, I mean, now's the time to bust, to go through all this in a 20-minute discussion and then vote on this. Well, you people have probably spent hours and hours at this. We're supposed to understand everything that you've talked about and the discussions you've had. In my mind, is it so wrong? The promise is that we should be able to get that highway property. They're not using it for anything, and we should be able to get it. What is the problem with finding out whether we're going to get it or not?
It's a land issue and it's something that we would discuss in the 9.1. But what I can say is we've had discussions and things look favorable.
Whatever.
okay, all in favor? Opposed? Elliott and McLean are opposed. So it carries. 6.4, new statutory holiday, CAO.
Yes, so this is an initiative that came forward from the federal government in June to commemorate the history and ongoing trauma caused by residential schools. The provincial government then followed suit shortly after. I did partake, or the town municipality did partake in a bit of a survey of other regional districts and municipalities in our area, and every one of them was going to support the idea that September 30th would be a statutory holiday. I reviewed our collective agreement. There's language in our collective agreement that specifically talks about if there's a new statutory agreement or a statutory holiday announced, that it would be added to the holidays that's already existing. And so we are proposing that we follow suit with the other communities in the province, and the federal government had declared September 30th to commemorate the history.
So the only thing I'm going to say on this is a day of mourning, not a day of, like a celebration day. It's kind of like a remembrance day sort of thing. So it would fall on the September 30th, not when you change around and all that kind of things.
So
Any
moved.
questions? Okay, Councillor Elliott has moved it.
I'll second.
Elliott, Gould, any questions? Councillor
This
Gould?
one, funds in the budget to support the paid day off?
Yes.
Thank you.
We don't have a choice, really. It's in the
Hey.
collective agreement.
That's right.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council reports. I'll give you guys a break today, and I'll go first. How's that? Perfect.
Nice.
So I think our last meeting was on the 16th, so August 18th, the MLA, Rolly Russell, facilitated a meeting between the Kamloops Fire Center, Minister of Transportation, the Town of Princeton, and Director for Area H. I think it was an okay meeting. CAO was there. We talked about the need for better communication, especially since we had Minister of Transportation in the room. The next time they were going to close Highway 5 and Highway 1 and reroute everybody plus 16,000 evacuees through our community. We should get a heads up. Don't want to put the ministry guys on the hot seat, but they didn't know about it at the time, they said. So nobody told them either. So that was a bit of a eye-opener. The town and the Area H also said that we needed more information when it comes to the Garrison Lake fire, because we were all kind of left outside of the circle and not getting updates on what was going on with the fire. The Kamloops Fire Center made a commitment to us that we would do that, and on Friday, last Friday, right? Yeah, the Friday we just had, we met with the new incident command team, and they are working on their planning. They were working on their planning session, and they came to talk to our team and the Area H representative about the future plans with the Garrison Lake fire, and that they would keep us in the loop as they developed their plan and moved forward. So that was a nice change in the way things were done. Also on the 18th of August, I sat in briefly on a housing meeting with Princeton and District Community Services and the local Vermilion Forks Métis Association. And the discussion was around affordable housing and senior housing in the community. Princeton and District Community Services is still dedicated to trying to find a solution to go forward with a housing development in the community. Right now there's no grants on the table, but once there's something, they will be moving forward with that. They have identified new location for a development and are planning around that location. They own some properties. So. August 19th, I had the Regional District Board meeting. August 20th, I was asked to attend Susan Brown's retirement lunch up at the hospital, which was also Dr. Musa's going away lunch. Susan Brown, the administrator for this area for the Interior Health, has retired, or I think she's retired now, or she's in the process of retiring, and we will have a new administrator. So it's kind of nice to go out there and say goodbye to Susan. We have a long history together with the hospital, the ER closures and all that kind of fun stuff. So it was good to see her go out on a good note instead of a bad note. The 26th of August, I attended a virtual meeting with the RCMP regarding their future facility plans. September 20th, the Regional District Board meeting, and then the first one in a while, our mayor's roundtable on the vaccine and COVID with Interior Health. Still a lot of concern in the area around COVID numbers as they are increasing, not only in our community, but across most of the Interior Health area. So just a little bit of talk about that, a lot of questions about how the passport was going to roll out, not a lot of answers at the time, as we didn't know much about it when that came out. And then today I attended a meeting in Karamias with members of the Smoking Valley to talk about diking, the orphan dikes along the Smoking and Tulameen River. We had a phone meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and that there's a need to fund, somebody needs to fund the repair of those orphan dikes, because no matter what Princeton and Karamias does, if the orphan dikes around our communities aren't repaired, we're kind of throwing good money down the drain, because we can't fix their dikes outside the town. And then I had a minister meeting with the regional district and our meeting. And that's my report. Let's go Tyler. Counselor Willis. Okay. Counselor Gould.
I don't have any meetings to report. I just want to talk quickly about deer and wildlife conflicts. It's that time of the year again, where the does have their babies. Kids are going to be walking back to school. There's bears in the community. I can never stress this enough, that if somebody puts a complaint on Facebook, it's not a complaint. If you would really like to see action, and we have tried talking to the ministers and tried to get conservation services increased in our area, and they tell us that our call complaints are too low. So a Facebook blurb is not a complaint. Please feel free to do an e-service request to the town. You can CC me. You can even contact the wildlife coordinator. There's report the animal to the report our APP line. My email for the town is bgould@princeton.ca. I'd be happy to take note of those. And if anybody that has concerns about the deer in our community and are willing to participate in a deer count with me, please get in touch with me. I will gladly take the help in doing a count.
Excellent.
And that's my report.
Thank you. Counselor Elliott.
No meetings to report, but I'd like to tell you that September is AFib Awareness Month, and AFib is what I've been dealing with for just over a year now with my heart. So it's something that shows up on my calendar, and it's something that's very important to me, so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor McLean.
I have no meetings to report, but I just would make a comment that the comment that came out of Councillor Gould in terms of we don't have that much time to be involved in procedures that are going on. In the last whatever, I've had 0 meetings. I don't think it'll be, I myself would like to be involved more. I'm getting paid to be a counselor. Was elected to be a counselor. I was elected to know what I'm talking about when these things are going on. I would appreciate being called out and put to work. Be involved in the processes that are going on. Because obviously, we don't have a ton of meetings that are taking up our time anyway. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. See you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We'll put you to work. Okay, let's move on. Princeton Community Arts Council appointment. I'm asking council that we rescind the appointment of Councillor Elliott as the liaison to the Princeton Arts Council, and that Cody Naples, Recreation, Tourism, and Cultural Events Coordinator, be appointed as the liaison to the Princeton Arts Council. Thanks, Councillor. You could have made it.
Well, I'll second it then.
Councillor Gould. Any questions?
Can I speak to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I suspect that Councillor Gould's got a question. It's just to respond to a request from the Arts Council to reduce the number of town people at their meetings. And I figured it just made a lot more sense that they deal with the events coordinator as opposed to me, because they would need to talk to the events coordinator for any of their activities. And it just made sense to me.
Okay. We had that, just to speak on that, we did have that another group that we have representation on, and the solution I had was to become a member, step back as the representative of town and become a member. So you're still going to go, because they're usually looking for help. But will Cody report back to us then on the events? Like Councillor?
He does. There's not much goes on. I'm just trying to think. We can ask them to send a report every now and then. We don't really get a lot of reports out of them.
Or requests of council or anything?
Yeah,
like
they
that
would
come
already
through
do
town
that.
anyways.
Like they already. So the thing is if Councillor Elliott or myself go, then we still have to refer everything to Cody, because everything they do is on a town facility.
Yep.
So then they would have to still go through Cody, and then Cody would have to go through Lyle. And then if there's any decisions by council, then it still has to go in front of us before it goes. So we're just going to cut out the middleman.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, Cody does report to me on a regular basis, and then if it's an event or whatever, then that list and request, and that would come from council.
Yeah. This just streamlines it.
Understood.
If there's no further questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Correspondence receive and file, we have 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. We have a motion that they be received and filed.
So moved.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor McLean, any questions on any of them? No? All in favor? Carried, thank you. And the last one is a correspondence action request, that council proclaim October 18th to 24th, 2021 as Waste Reduction Week in the town of Princeton.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gould, seconder. Councillor Willis, any questions? All in favor? Carried. And the last thing is a motion to adjourn. Councillor McLean.
I'll
Councillor
second.
Gould. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Good night, everybody.